Personally, I like to keep my eyes open as much as I can. I find I learn a lot, at least hearing out the other side of popular opinion. There was a great line in a movie years ago called Badlands with Martin Sheen that stuck with me ever since I heard it. It went, let me see if I can remember the exact quote. Always consider the minority opinion. There's an outside chance you might learn something, but try to go along with the majority opinion once it's been accepted. That's very good advice. You live a better life if you can just kind of go with the flow of general public opinion. Even if you think you're onto something better than that, it behooves one to not go against the strain and the stream of public opinion, I think. It just makes for better living. However, it is a very good thing, I think, to at least consider minority opinion. And rather than negate them completely and just fob them off and say, oh, they're crazy loons, I usually like to at least put one ear forward and say, okay, what are you trying to say about this? And in many cases, of course, I turn and say, well, that was ridiculous and what a waste of time and you're a bloody idiot. And in many other cases, I must say, I at very least learn something. No, at very least I'm entertained, because if it's really ridiculous, I get a good chuckle out of it. But in many cases, I actually learn some stuff. I may not actually believe the theory in full or their conclusion that they've come to, but I might actually learn some extra details that I didn't know before. I quite often find that people who are into a conspiracy about something, it could be anything, could be, you know, the JFK assassination, could be anything, that quite often they know a lot of details about what actually happened. They may come to some odd conclusions that you may not agree with, but they have a lot of information and they usually have their dates straight and their names all put in order, which is more than I can say for most other people. I think most people out there just go along with the idea that the moon landings happened in 1969. I think a lot of people aren't even aware that there were other landings that happened over the following years. Well, maybe they are. And then that's it. That's all they need to know. They don't really need to think about it anymore. Whereas the average conspiracy theorist, moon truther, you might call them, usually know a lot about what was happening at the time politically. Quite often they know a lot about the actual, literally the rocket science of it and so on, and they learn a lot of stuff. You know, your average moon truther knows about the Van Allen belts, for example, which are a belt of radiation that protects us from solar radiation. A lot of people have never even heard of the Van Allen belts. So by getting into that conspiracy theory, you might actually learn a little bit about science anyway, regardless of what conclusion you come to. So I tend to, at very least, entertain myself with the knowledge that I can find out from various conspiracy theorists. When it comes to the moon landing, if you're one of those people who gets irritated, annoyed by the fact that some people deny that it ever happened, I would say this to you. I can see why some of these people are getting paranoid about it. It's not being made very easy. There are certain things that just don't help. There are things that just don't help the situation. The photograph with the strange reflection in the visor, the rock with the letter C on it, the conflicting shadows suggesting multiple light sources, the lack of any stars or night sky in the background of the photos, the lack of any crater or signs of impact underneath the Eagle lunar module, the flag that appears to wave in the air even though there's no atmosphere on the moon, the Van Allen belts and the danger of radiation, and the fact that no other mission before or since has ever gone through them. The fact that the Russians had a much stronger space presence. For every 20 hours astronauts spent in space, cosmonauts spent 100. The Russians had the first satellite and first man in space. And America had already admitted to being way behind in the space race. yet they were able to pull off with perfection and on the first attempt something that the Russians weren't able to. Then there's the fact that Neil Armstrong refused to do any sit-down interviews ever since the moon landings, and whenever he did appear in public, he would say cryptic things like this.
There are great ideas undiscovered, breakthroughs available to those who can remove one of truth's protective layers.
Then there's this damning evidence during a broadcast where they claim to be 180,000 miles out and showing the distant Earth behind them, only for the footage to reveal that they were just showing a window in their module, and in fact that they were only in low orbit. This particular footage was believed to be released by accident to someone who was actually investigating the moon landings.